You have spent years memorizing vocabulary, conjugating irregular verbs, and mastering the intricate rules of English grammar. Yet the moment a native speaker asks you a simple question in real time, your mind goes completely blank. When prompted to speak, your brain enters a state of severe multitasking, attempting to retrieve words, assemble syntax, monitor pronunciation, and read social cues all at the exact same time. When that wall of silence hits, the immediate reaction is profound embarrassment. It is incredibly easy to blame yourself, to assume that your vocabulary is deficient or that you just aren't smart enough to achieve fluency. But the truth is entirely biological. In applied linguistics, the immense pressure of a live conversation is called socio-cognitive load. This load represents the sheer amount of working memory required to decode a second language, while simultaneously managing the intense social pressure of feeling judged. Studying more flashcards loads stop a mind blank, because the failure isn't in your knowledge. It's a systemic crash of your brain's processing power that happens the moment the load becomes too heavy to carry. This paralysis starts in the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure deep in the brain that serves as our primary threat detection center. The problem is that your ancient survival mechanisms cannot differentiate between the social fear of making a grammatical mistake and the physical danger of being chased by a predator. This diagram illustrates the exact anatomy of a conversational freeze. Looking at the calm state on the left, you can see how information flows freely along the blue neural pathways straight into the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for retrieving language and building coherent sentences. But in the critical millisecond where you feel judged, the amygdala detects a threat and initiates a fight, flight, or freeze response. As you can see on the right, it releases a flood of cortisol and adrenaline, creating a physical barricade that heavily restricts access to your higher-order cognitive functions. You haven't suddenly forgotten years of English study. The vocabulary you need is sitting right there in your memory. The neural pathway required to reach those words has simply been locked down to prioritize your immediate physical survival. Because this freeze is an involuntary biological reflex, trying to force your way through it by consciously analyzing grammar rules is completely useless. To restore your speech, you have to use specific recovery tools designed to turn the brain's alarm system off. When the mental barricade drops, your first instinct is usually to freeze, widen your eyes, and remain completely silent. In human conversation, dead air creates awkwardness, which spikes your internal anxiety and makes the mental block even stronger. Traditional academic environments penalize hesitation, but native speakers constantly rely on functional discourse markers, commonly known as filler words like well, and you know. These are not signs of intellectual laziness. They are vital cognitive tools used to buy processing time without losing the floor. There is even a physiological benefit to hesitation. In American English, sounds like and rely on the schwa. The schwa is the most common neutral vowel sound in the English language, and making this sound forces your jaw, lips, and tongue into a completely relaxed resting position. Activating this physical relaxation sends a feedback loop to your nervous system, signaling safety and actively reducing your heart rate. By deploying a soft starter, like saying, "Well, let me think about that for a second," you secure your turn to speak. This gives your prefrontal cortex the critical milliseconds it needs to bypass the amygdala's alarm and retrieve the necessary vocabulary. Far from being mistakes, filler words are your conversational shields. They maintain the auditory rhythm of fluency while your brain silently reboots in the background. Once you have purchased that extra time, you must resist the urge to try harder. Forcing your panicked brain to construct a complex, highly nuanced sentence from individual grammatical rules will guarantee a total system failure. Native speakers do not build sentences word by word. They retrieve lexical chunks, pre-assembled multi-word phrases stored in memory, and attach them to the basic SVO pattern. SVO stands for Subject-Verb-Object, the most fundamental, indestructible building block of English syntax. Sometimes a specific noun is completely trapped behind the mental block. When this happens, you can execute a recovery maneuver known academically as circumlocution, or the description bridge. This flowchart breaks down how to navigate a forgotten word. Retrieving a target concept often hits a mental block. Instead of halting, pivot to the detour path. Deploy a filler chunk followed by a functional SVO description to bypass the forgotten word. Native speakers are naturally cooperative listeners. By providing a clear, functional description instead of dead silence, they will instantly deduce your meaning and supply the missing word for you. A moment of individual failure becomes a highly natural, collaborative interaction. While rescue tools help in the moment, you must also eliminate the toxic habits that trigger the freeze in the first place. The single most destructive habit in second language acquisition is attempting to construct a sentence in your native tongue and translating it word for word into English before speaking. This graphic exposes the latency of translation. In the slow way, translating from a concept through your native language is a slow computation that causes freezes. To think naturally, forge a direct connection between the object and the English word in the fast way. You can train this direct connection with the 30-second micro-description drill. Set a timer for half a minute and rapidly name the objects around your room aloud, strictly in English. Crucially, if you do not immediately know the English word for an object, you skip it instantly. You absolutely must not pause to look up the translation. By repeatedly linking English words to raw visual and sensory stimuli, you force your brain to treat English as an instinctive response. You permanently remove the internal translation bottleneck that causes your system to overheat. Connecting with native speakers becomes easier when you look at how they actually use the language. You must begin by abandoning the impossible standard of textbook perfection, a standard that causes your immense socio-cognitive load, and one that native speakers themselves ignore on a daily basis. Formal academic English and real-world spoken English operate as two entirely different dialects. If you attempt to speak with rigid, uncontracted grammar in a casual setting, you will ironically sound robotic and distinctly non-native. In everyday conversation, native speakers break the cardinal rules of grammar to prioritize speed and rhythm. They end sentences with prepositions. They use adjectives where adverbs belong. They aggressively use elision, completely dropping hard consonants and swallowing entire syllables so words flow together faster. The native listener across from you is not waiting with a red pen to grade your proposition usage. They are simply waiting to extract the core meaning of your thought. Realizing that human communication is meant to be messy and rhythmic relieves the crushing pressure to be flawless, which instantly disarms your amygdala's threat response. The next time you feel the panic rising and the vocabulary slipping away, remember that maintaining the human connection is more important than perfect grammar. If the words fail, inhale, use a filler, and rely on your SVO blocks to keep the conversation moving.